My philosophy is more to have a career purpose than a career plan. I wouldn't make it too rigid. I like to keep it general. I like to remain flexible because if it's too rigid, you run the risk of disappointment. Uh, Mine is very generic. It's do what I love and improve lives. If I can be doing that in 5 or 10 years, great.
Today I'm welcoming Chuck Tomasi back to the podcast. Chuck gets the distinction of being my first ever repeat guest on the show, having joined me on episode 346 a couple of years ago. It was great fun to catch up with Chuck again and to learn more about his role at ServiceNow, as well as his thoughts on how to be successful in a tech career. I'm sure you'll find the episode a very enjoyable and interesting listen. Hello, I'm your host Phil Burgess, and welcome to episode 357 of the IT Career Energizer podcast. Joining me today is Chuck Tomasi, a developer advocate at ServiceNow. So, Chuck, welcome back to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Phil. It's wonderful to be back as the first returning guest. That's an honor.
Indeed, indeed. And if people look back at the sort of episodes, it's actually not that long ago when you look at the numbers, but in reality, in terms of time, it's just over 2 years. So yeah, it's great to have you back on the show, and we'll come into reasons why I wanted you back, and now was such a good time to do it. But what I'd like to do is maybe start with asking you a little bit about what you've been doing over the last 2 years. So since we last spoke.
Yeah, personally, I've had a couple of things going on. I'll just stick with some of the more recent ones. We've recently released the fifth edition of Podcasting for Dummies, so that took up the latter part of 2023 and early 2024. Getting ready for that, doing that with my co-author T. Morris. So happy to have that on bookshelves and online stores right now. Shameless plug
Yeah.
right there. I know that was just a terrible way to start. For other fun, earlier this year, I started playing the ukulele, so I haven't touched a musical instrument in decades, going back to my childhood almost. So it's fun to be able to produce some sort of sound other than my voice. That's been a very
Yeah,
fun and creative outlet.
it's not something I've ever tried in terms of playing, well, a stringed instrument at all. So how have you got on with that? Is it easy to learn the
It is
ukulele?
very easy to learn. My wife and I, I'll make a long story short. We were on a cruise from Los Angeles to Hawaii, and it took 4 days to get there. Every day they had a lesson. So they supplied the equipment, they supplied the lessons. By the time we got to the islands, we knew two songs and we did a concert with the whole group of people. We weren't terrific, but it sounded all right. And when we got back from that cruise, I bought one on Amazon and I have not put it down since. In fact, just before we started recording, I was going through Maxwell Silverhammer by the Beatles for
Oh
fun.
wow. Yeah. And your wife's okay with this, is she?
Oh, yes, she's joined right in. We now own three ukuleles among two people, so there's never a
Right.
shortage.
Fair enough. Okay. And work-wise, what else have you been up to?
Yeah, work-wise, I've been doing the developer advocate, just executing on that as much as possible, continue to create content and build community for our developer ecosystem, whether it's podcasts or videos, being an MC at our conferences and release events, that sort of thing. I've also still been scratching that developer itch with some integrations to a custom URL shortener or our podcast hosting provider or meetup.com that we use to organize our meetups. So doing some REST integrations, GraphQL, continue to stretch and learn and grow. And that always turns into content for our community. And I don't know if I mentioned this on our last podcast when we spoke 2 years ago, but about that time, I was ramping up to become the manager of our developer advocate team. And it went so far as to start doing one-on-ones with our team members. And ultimately, I decided not to take that position because I knew in my head that I was planning to retire in late August of 2025. And I hadn't told anyone yet this. So I had to back off, sort of like, well, this isn't the right time. Because if I'd taken over in, say, early 2023, it would have given me 18 to 24 months of being an effective manager. And that just felt like too much change for the team, too much change for the organization. So I opted to remain a senior individual contributor and a strong, strong supporter for the new manager that we got about a year ago. Ultimately, oddly enough, the team, my colleagues, my peers, elected to keep those one-on-ones as they provided a different level of communication than they would have with the manager, and I liked it. I got to know them as people, as friends, where they were going on vacation. We went anywhere with those discussions, whether it was technical or otherwise. But the main thing I mentioned spoiler alert, I'm retiring in 28 days as of this recording. So I've been preparing for that for the last couple of years, looking at what work I do. So the videos, the release events, MC, podcasts, and who on the team I can hand that off to. And of course, working with management to align with, my choices. And then last Christmas, the original plan, as I stated, was August of 2025. Last Christmas, my wife, who does an awesome job of managing our family finances, she said, "We could we could pull that in if you want. There's going to be a little repercussion about unrecognized stock options, but we could pull that in." And I said, "Let's do that." My father turned 90 this year. He's still with us. My mother is still with us. She turned 89. I said, "They're not getting any younger." And I don't want to be that person. Honestly, Phil, I love what I do. I love the people I work with. They are a big part of my life, but I don't wanna be 75 years old and go, "Oh, I think it's time for retirement. I had a great run. Where did everybody go?" I want to enjoy the family and the friends while they're here. It must be a sign that I'm closing in on 60 very rapidly because, mortality of me and those around me is staring me in the face, and I really, really want to enjoy time with the people that I've got while I'm here.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. But there must be mixed emotions involved because obviously you've been very what's the right word? I suppose
Dismal?
you've been very involved in the community, haven't you? And you've built up a lot of good relationships, and it's something we touched on actually when we last spoke about the importance of having those relationships and the one to ones you just mentioned as well. So I can see there's going to be a bit of a wrench away, isn't there?
It is. It's very difficult, and it wasn't made any easier since I made the public announcement in early July. It was there were many, many heartfelt comments on LinkedIn and emails, and it was I cut many of them out and put them into Evernote as a digital scrapbook. I said, "If I ever have a down day or doubt myself, this is affirmation that there are people out there who care." Uh, I did
There
not
are.
take it lightly, the responsibility that I had for the impact on the lives that, you know, producing this content and it meant a lot to them, it means a lot to me, and I am humbled because in my opinion, I'm just a software guy. I do the dishes, I do my laundry, I go grocery shopping like everybody else. There's nothing really special except one day I turned on a camera and started sharing my thoughts.
That's interesting to hear. Yes, I suppose. I mean, I only do the podcast. It's very much the voice more than anything else. So people won't necessarily know me from video or anything like that. But I can appreciate that. You do get feedback, don't you? So and it's
Mhm.
good to build those relationships.
Yes.
Yeah. Just on service now, I just wanted to ask you. This is something that I've always wondered about.
Mhm.
So I'm aware of the releasing naming convention, if you like. So obviously you've been going from A to Z or A to Z. Um, and the last one was Washington, wasn't it? The next one coming up will be Xanadu.
Right?
Um, Xanadu is an interesting selection of a name, but I presume it was quite difficult to come up with something that began with X.
The naming choices are beyond the scope of my influence. We were doing fine. Aspen, Berlin, Calgary, Dublin, on and on and on. It's like a children's book at this point. Until we got to you. Now, I would have gone with Utrecht, right? The
Uh huh.
1.3 million people living there. For some reason, our release team went with Utah. I said, "That's not a city. We've been naming these after cities of the world. That's a state in the United States." And I just went, scratching my head, going, "Okay, whatever." Made for a nice icon on a T-shirt with delicate arch from, Arches National Park. Then we got to X, and it got challenging again because we don't have any customers. There was something about the relationship with China because there's lots of cities in China that start with X,
Yes.
Xiamen and many more that aren't coming to mind right now. But they went with Xanadu, which actually is a place in Mongolia. It's not just the Olivia Newton-John movie from the 19.
Well, immediately that sprang to mind as soon as you
Everybody
think,
our age does, of course.
or the poem by, is it Samuel Taylor Coleridge as well, which is Kubla Khan. So
Right.
yes.
So, yeah, it had some interesting connotations. Uh, then will come Yokohama and Zurich, and the ultimate question is, what are we
What
doing
happens
next?
next?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
I don't know. That's a
Right.
year
Okay.
away. I'm sure they're thinking about
Okay.
it.
Well, we'll leave that as an open question. So,
Maybe a contest. You could ask your listeners.
indeed, indeed, exactly. Right. Okay. So the thing I really wanted to find out about you, and given that you're obviously coming up, I mean, by the time this episode actually goes out, I think it'll be the week after your retirement date. So that's something to be
How did
aware
I
of.
do?
But yes, exactly. But what I want to really understand from you is a bit about the role of the developer advocate.
Sure.
So, um, really, if you can, I don't know if it's easy to do this, but could you sum up what the developer advocate role is all about?
Sure. I get asked a lot, and it's one of those tricky questions that's sort of nebulous. I The two main things we do are create content and create community. They often go hand in hand. We noted earlier that by being on videos and podcasts, I become a recognized entity, and that helps build community. When I go to an event, people want to get selfies. They treat me like a celebrity, at least for 1 week a year, and then I go back to the grocery store, and life is civil again. The we act sort of as an intermediary, a connection, an interface between our developer ecosystem and our product teams. So when product teams come out with something new, they want to showcase it. We help the developers understand, here's the new feature. Here's how you use it. This is why you want to migrate from the old feature to the new feature, that sort of thing. And then we get feedback from the ecosystem that we can drive back to the product managers. So we've got that conduit between these two worlds. Could they do it themselves? Yes, some do to a certain degree with outbound product management, but it it's not quite the same, and it's not always entirely focused on developers. So we're out, and whether it's no code and low code and pro code or whatever you want to term them, anywhere on that spectrum of developer skill set, we engage with those people through meetups, through webinars, through videos where we're enabling and exciting and educating the people on what we've got to offer. So that's my 60-second spiel.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I suppose the one thing that I would say is about the developer advocate role. It's something I didn't even know about probably 8 years ago, 10
Neither did
years ago.
I.
It's a role I had never heard of.
Right.
So I know you touched on the next question slightly just now, but in terms of the benefits to a company like ServiceNow, why do you feel that they actually need those developer advocates that are separate, if you like, to the product development or the marketing team?
Some of that is for for the community. Some of it they are the influencers of their organization, as it were. Uh, when a project comes up and they say, "Hey, we're going to redo our vehicle registration system for a state department," whatever, they've got a use case. They say, what platform should we build this on? I want to make sure that they're fast to raise their hand and say, we're going to build this on ServiceNow, and here's why. Shorter
Hmm.
time to value, bigger return on investment, easier maintenance path, all this stuff. And I know I'm sounding kind of markety right now, but that's what I've come to learn to believe. I used to be a full stack developer, stood up my own MySQL databases and wrote PHP and other, languages that created the front end and the back end. And you know what? It doesn't hold a candle to having a platform where you've got these capabilities at your disposal. Just writing a reporting tool on a full stack app is terrible. Or connecting with one. Now you've got all these connections and interfaces and exports and imports, single platform, single database, much easier. And that's what I want our developers to recognize is there's value in having this platform at our disposal for not only what we're known for the last 2 decades is ITSM, but IT operations management and service catalog and HR service delivery and customer service management. There's lots of out of the box applications, but it is a platform and they can continue to build whatever their hearts desire. If there's a process, there's a solution for it. An occupational hazard that I've got is I walk into a business or something and I see an inefficiency and say, I can fix this. Why are you handing me a clipboard? I should be filling this online before I even get here. This is ridiculous.
Yes, yeah. Okay, and in terms of um, the skill set that a developer advocate needs, now presumably having that programmer background is almost essential, is it?
It's very useful, yes, because you are talking to, people that I consider my peers, my colleagues, and if I did not have that credential of experience, it wouldn't carry the same credit. I wouldn't be able to communicate effectively and in both directions, both outbound and inbound. So yes, that is a component of it, but there's also the communication piece. You have to be an effective communicator, a presenter, um, a showman to a certain degree, if that's the right term, to be able to stand up in front of an audience or in front of a camera and deliver that message in a clear way that resonates with your audience. So many times we get information from our marketing. I report directly up through marketing, ultimately to the chief marketing officer, about 5, 6, 7 levels above me. And they'll say, here's what we're going to say about these new products. And I look at him and say, "This no, no, no developer wants to hear these words come out of my mouth." So I have to recraft them into as a developer, I can do that. It's like, what do I need to know? It's what is it? Why did we build it? And why should I care? That's really all anybody wants to know.
And if somebody wanted to become, or they're interested in becoming a developer
Mhm.
advocate, what should they do? What's the best approach?
Um, get the experience, become a developer on whatever it is. I don't care what platform or ecosystem it's in, but you need that experience and you need to communicate that to the ecosystem, get involved with the communities. And this will probably come up again later, but it's community, community, community. If you're not visible, if you're not a known entity, you're probably not even going to show up on the radar when a position does come up and you apply for it. We just had this happen about a month and a half ago when we opened up a backfill position to mine. There were 250 applicants, and I recognized about 10 names. It's it's very much like we're heading for an election season in the United States here, and you know the big names, who's running for president and vice president, and your state senator. But when you get down to things like dog catcher. I don't know who's running for dog catcher, and I haven't had time to research their positions or city commissioner or county clerk or whatever it is. Yet there's some lesser known titles and lesser known names, but all they would have to do to influence me is put a sign on the side of the road and say, vote for, Clarence. And I'll go, oh, I recognize Clarence's name. Sometimes that's all it takes to influence my decision. That's the same kind of philosophy you need if you're applying for any job is get your name out there because it's not entirely what you know. It's who you know and who knows you.
Yeah, I think the recognition part of it is very true, definitely. Just a brief interruption to ask you if you can think of one other person that would benefit from becoming a listener of the show. It would be fantastic if you could share this episode with them. The objective of the show has always been to help as many people as possible in developing and building successful careers in tech. So by sharing this episode with one other person, you'll be contributing to achieving that objective. And please remember to follow or subscribe to the podcast in your podcast app. Okay, I'm going to take you back a bit maybe now. So I'd like to know what you wish you'd known at the beginning of your career. That maybe you've learned something along the way that you think, oh, if only I'd known that.
Right. And I wish I thought about this one a long time because I get asked this frequently, and the easy answer is, "Oh, I wish I'd known what stocks to buy and sell."
Well, yes,
Uh,
yes.
but there were other things like building a brand for myself, the bow tie, the bright green shirt, that was all very helpful. I sort of did that by instinct anyway. Investing in relationships, I seem to have come by those naturally and did pretty well. But I wanted to come up with something for you that I learned that would have really helped me when I was back in my 20s. And that took some thought. I came up with this one. I had to go back and ask my 20-year-old self, what did you have a problem with? What was the challenge you had? And it was really dealing with management, upper level management. I had this kind of anxiety or fear anytime I was with somebody more than one level above me in the organization. They seemed very intimidating, very powerful, very important. And I thought that I'm not experienced enough. I've been here a whole 2 years and I might say the wrong thing, but I needed to learn to put myself out there. And if anybody's feeling the same way, if there's ever a time to make a mistake in your career, it's early. Make those mistakes early in your career because you can always recover. What I learned later was that senior management, SVPs, EVPs, C suite people, they value that input. They often don't see what you see and how you see it. So having those conversations from time to time is very helpful to them as well. And you don't need to worry about how you say something because they're usually pretty good at filtering the signal from the noise. You'll get better and learn how to have those executive conversations as you go. Like, I know how to keep it to 30 seconds or less. And if they want to know more, they ask. Really good managers and executives will seek this out on their own. And a good example is our own CEO and chairman, Bill McDermott. He asks almost every employee he encounters, "How are you doing? What are you working on? How's that going?" And he can get this kind of pulse of the organization. Even though there's 25,000 people, he'll be walking out to his car and he'll see somebody who works in maintenance and ask them, or the front desk, or engineering, so he's always on top of it. But it never really hurts to take your own initiative and send an email or a Teams message or make a phone call to these people and say, "Hey, I've got an idea." Or, "Were you aware that this is happening?" Just letting you know so it doesn't surprise you on the next employee survey. That's very helpful.
It is indeed. I suppose it's partly what you mentioned just now as well about that visibility aspect of it.
Yes. Yes, they can become
Cool.
your advocate really fast too.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. Okay, and going back again, maybe to the beginning of your career, did you have a career plan of any sort? And what do you think about career plans? Are they valuable?
They are extremely valuable. I have to confess, I never really had much of a career plan.
Right.
However, I was very fortunate enough that the opportunities found me, and they were often based off of things that I did for fun. For example, when I was in college and working on my computer science degree, my brother, who was 4 years older, was working at an electronics company and they needed somebody with my skills. Hey, that landed to be my first job. Again, letting people know what you do helps you it helps them find the right person for the right job. And as I was ending that first job stint, um, the engineering company that he was working for, I was in a subsidiary. They were bringing in some Unix systems and they were looking for a Unix system admin. I already ran a Unix-based dial-up BBS. It gives you a bit of a time frame when this takes place.
Mm.
I was running this at home and they said, "You know Unix? Great. You want this position? Sure do. Now I get to get paid for what I love to do anyway." A bit more recently at ServiceNow, I was doing technical implementations shortly after I came on board. Did that for about a year and a half. And they brought in and started an enablement program for the professional services arm. Well, I was already doing very similar workshops as part of my implementations. I was sharing my information online and writing blog articles, and that led to the developer advocate position ultimately. And even that's a direct extension from the podcast that I've been doing as doing them for fun as far back as 20 years ago. So a lot of I feel very fortunate that I was allowed to take my hobby and turn that into an aspect of my job. The only exception that I can think of to having this fortuitous do something for fun, get recognized, and turn into a job was at my previous company. I had a goal of becoming the IT manager. Our boss and my personal friend, he had been let go. Uh, so I discussed it with the rest of the team, and I said, "Well, we have some choices here. One of us can step up. We can bring in somebody externally. We can bring in somebody internally." And we agreed that it might make sense for me to take the position. I was interested in it anyway, so I took courses. I found a mentor, the whole deal, and that led to a lateral transfer to repatriate our help desk from the corporate side, and that ultimately connected me with ServiceNow. So as far as an importance of a career plan, uh, I always found it challenging when somebody said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" I hated that
Yes.
question because especially in
Yes.
the tech industry, you don't know where the industry is going and you have to adjust fast. And what I did 5 years ago is nothing like what I expect to be doing in 5 years. In terms of technology and opportunities, I don't know. I mean, if you look at this window in my career from 2005 to 2010, I went from being an individual contributor. I was a Unix admin slash dev. Uh, then I was a manager. Then I was a technical consultant at a whole nother company. So you just can't predict the future. Uh, my philosophy is more to have a career purpose than a career plan. I wouldn't make it too rigid. I like to keep it general. I like to remain flexible because if it's too rigid, you run the risk of disappointment. Uh, Mine is very generic. It's do what I love and improve lives. If I can be doing that in 5 or 10 years, great. Even after retirement, I still want to do what I love and improve lives. It's very general. It could be a high school gym teacher, it could be a software developer, could be a mission worker in Honduras. They all fulfill that purpose. So I think a career purpose is a little more meaningful than a career plan. I have nothing against people who say I want to be CEO of Apple when I grow up. Good for you. Just don't be disappointed because there's that's a very, very specific target, and you're going to have a very challenging and competitive time getting there.
Yes. I think that's very well argued. And I think that's a good point about career plans, particularly in the tech industry, and the fact that we do live in an ever changing world when it comes to technology. So
Absolutely.
I think it's opportunity, isn't it, as well? You got to be sort of positioning yourself, as you mentioned earlier, but also open to opportunities that may arise and to be flexible. So for me, yeah, the career plan is as you might think of a career plan being a written document with objectives and so forth. I don't think that particularly fits in technology either. Um, I think your phrase career objectives, I think is probably or maybe like a guiding light of where you'd like to be or what you'd like to do. But as you say, that changes. So I think it's not something that's fixed either.
Constant review. Yes,
Yeah.
I still set annual goals. I still set annual goals to give myself something to shoot for, but I review those at least quarterly, if not monthly. Am I still on track? Does this still make sense? Is there something that needs to replace it? Has the situation changed in my family, in my career, whatever? It's all fine and dandy when you set a goal January 1st, 2024 to say, these are the things I will get done by the end of the year. And suddenly you've got a new job or you move the family. Those goals, throw them out, or at least take a look at them and see if they make sense still. So you have to constantly be adjusting, and to try and do that, 5 years or more into the future, you have to be a little more vague in your goals. I mean, that's like the life of a CEO. That's the strategy stuff. It's good to know about those. It's good to have ideas. Like my wife and I back in 2020, we should start thinking about retirement. Let's pick a target date. 2025 sounds good. I'll be 60. I'll be at the company for 15 years. Da 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 da. Sound like a good landmark. But we adjusted and pulled that in. Situation had changed.
I'd like to ask you about sort of key attributes of a successful career. So, thinking about technology in particular, are there key things you think that everybody should have to be successful, or do you think it's down to the individual?
Oh, we are so interdependent. It is there's things that you need to do as an individual, as I mentioned, be communicative, Be involved with other people. Those relationships that we talked about 2 years ago, still equally important. If you're just starting out in your tech career, or even if you've been in it for a while, get involved with the community in your or communities in your ecosystem. You may be interested in JavaScript and a certain technical device, Reddit groups or Stack Overflow, or whatever. Get involved with those communities so you can share your challenges, share your successes, share your knowledge, and be recognized in that ecosystem as someone who contributes. Again, put your sign on the side of the road so when the election comes up, someone will at least recognize your name. I've seen this so many times in my own career and countless others. Those who become seen and known for success achieve greater things. And it doesn't matter if you're the smartest person in the room, because if nobody knows it, it doesn't do any good. You have to get out there.
You do, exactly. And one last thing I'd like to ask you about
Mhm.
is there anything you feel in terms of your own career skills that maybe still hold true from when you started in your career? You may have already touched on some of these, but is there anything that really stands out?
Yes, I still firmly believe in the relationships. It's all about the people. If you're
Yep.
in the service industry, it's all about your customers. Yeah, if you're in manufacturing, it's all about your customer. It's really all about the people around you, the people you work for, the people you work with. That's a key driver to getting you where you want to go, even places you don't even know about or don't exist yet. Several of the positions I had, including ServiceNow, they didn't exist 6 months prior to me taking them. And as a pioneer of one of these new departments or a new position, I really enjoyed being able to map that uncharted territory of a new role and create processes and procedures based on research and peers and feedback and mentorship and sometimes just pure gut instinct. That's always been enjoyable to me. So I wouldn't have found those opportunities if it weren't for the people around me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, you mentioned some of the things that you do outside of your day to day. So you obviously touched on the podcasting for dummies. I
Mhm.
know you do a couple of other podcasts as well. Um, do you want to just maybe give people a bit of an understanding of what else you get up to?
It's going to be changing soon. My wife and I love to travel. We take a couple of cruises. I'm a sci-fi fan. We do a Star Trek cruise every spring. Royal Caribbean and through a company called Entertainment Cruise Productions does that. We've been doing that for 5, 6 years, enjoying every one of them. It's more like a reunion at this point because there's so many repeat customers that I can go, "Hey, there's Ian, there's Jeff. How you doing, Brad and Tony and Mary Ellen?" And you get together with friends again. It is such a warm and open environment. So we love to take cruises. We love to do traveling. We've got an anniversary trip to Mexico planned in October. Um, I will still be doing the 2 podcasts that we do. I do a Star Trek podcast, and I do another one that we've been running since 2005. So those will continue. I've got the studio equipment. It'd be a shame to just let it sit here collecting dust.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
I didn't, put it to use, my wife would go, "All right, we're turning that into 2 bedrooms again." Like, "No! I've got I've got a claim to this property. This is my man cave."
um, in terms of reminding people, how can we, reach out to you or connect with you? Where's the best place to go?
Best place to go is, my personal website, chucktomasi.com, Tom. I can spell my own name. Tomasi. I had a side thought. I started using a URL shortener recently. So ctomasi.link will point you just about everywhere. I've really loved creating those short links. They help me remember things better than I expected. And somebody says, "Hey, what's your YouTube channel?" It's like, "Oh, ctomasi.link/YouTube." "What's your Facebook page?" ctomasi.link/Facebook. "Where's everything?" ctomasi.link/me. So I don't have to think real hard with a URL shortener and a custom domain.
Chuck, thank you so much again for joining me on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again.
Thank you for having me, Phil.
I hope we can catch up again soon. You've been listening to Phil Burgess and Chuck Tomasi on the IT Career Energizer podcast. Show notes from this episode can be found on the podcast website at itcareerenergizer.com/E357. Thank you so much for listening in. I'm your host, Phil Burgess, and I look forward to catching you in the very next episode.